Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy K. What the fuck? Ground is shaking! Ah, 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 ah.
No Richter scale can measure it.
They're coming!
No scientist can explain it.
Bert, they're under the ground!
Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, Tremors.
Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage, and for what it is, I think Tremors is a nearly perfect movie. It is a 1990 horror comedy written by S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock, and it marks the feature film directorial debut by Ron Underwood. In the vein of old monster movies from the 50s and 60s, it tells the story of a small remote village in Nevada that is fighting for survival against giant underground worms hungry for human flesh. It features Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward in the leading roles as the two struggling repairmen Valentine and Earl, but it really turns into an ensemble piece with a wonderful diverse cast of people. It is pretty much like Spielberg's Jaws and Hitchcock's Birds, only with giant worms. One of the film's working titles even has been Land Sharks. I have watched the film many times over the years, and it never stops being just this incredibly entertaining and also highly efficiently told fun monster flick. It is just a little bit over 90 minutes long and it runs like a well-oiled machine. There's basically no fat in it. Not a single scene or moment is wasted, and it moves at a constantly fast pace that always holds your attention and always keeps escalating what is going on. From the way all of our characters are introduced, the monsters are hinted at, to all important plot points being planted early on. It's of course not a deep film at all, it also doesn't want to be, but yet I think it's a great showcase for super efficient writing and filmmaking. The story is set in a small desert town of perfection, and when I say small, I mean like less than 20 people in total are living there. Val and Earl were just about to leave their bad luck in that place behind when a series of mysterious deaths are holding them back. The whole story is plotted very tightly. Val just told Earl that there's nothing, and he means nothing, between them and the next big town of Bixby now. And then, just 2 seconds later, they stumble upon the old guy Edgar perched atop an electrical tower. As it turns out, he's dead. He died of dehydration. There was something down there he was afraid of. Each time Val and Earl are about to leave, things get worse, and it doesn't take long, and they and the other residents of Perfection realize there are some kind of strange worms roaming, or rather digging their way through their neighborhood. Tremors has this great Wild West adventure vibe to it. It is exciting and it can get tense, but it's also just a lot of fun. At first the movie did receive an R rating, but that was not for violence but for language, with about 20 F-bombs getting dropped. The producers decided to cut back on that, so in the end it received a PG-13. And while I almost always wish for some more touches of gore, I think Tremors is a really nice and fun gateway into the world of horror, and actually a pretty good family horror movie that's not too gruesome or scary for most people. Aside from very few instances, it is also completely set during broad daylight, which adds to the film's nice western flair. The location is just great. Almost the entire movie takes place outside. There are just two interior sets, a small store and the basement of the eccentric survivalist couple Bert and Heather Gamma. This vast desert setting is integral to the film's story and threat. What the vast ocean is for Jaws, the desert is for Tremors. It is soon revealed that the worms only react to sound, or rather they pick up vibrations. And I have talked a little bit about this in my review of A Quiet Place, but this just makes for a great and fun horror premise. The whole concept of Tremors is basically the children's game The Floor is Lava, with our characters trying their best to not walk over unprotected desert sand. Instead, they hide on concrete rocks or on top of the few buildings in their town. It is just so relatable and easy to pick up as a viewer, and the film has just enough elements to keep this idea going and constantly add new challenges and obstacles to the mix. The film constantly moves at a very fast pace, almost like an attraction in an amusement park. Tremors is a horror comedy, but not in the same way like Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness are horror comedies. It still treats the threat somewhat seriously, as if those giant worms could exist in the real world. There aren't really jokes thrown at you or constant one-liners. The comedic vibe and lighter tone stem more from the natural banter between the characters and the heavy focus on fun and exciting action. Another element that I quite enjoy is that there's no real hostility among this group of people. There are some fun snide remarks here and there, but there isn't a character that's acting like a total asshole just to create some extra conflict in the story. I like how they are trying to work together to get out of that situation. And of course, I very much like how the monsters, the so-called graboids, are brought to life. It is this neat progression of just hinting at them, then showing some elements, and then revealing that there's even more to them, while also treating them as real beings that are able to learn and adapt. Just like our human characters try to learn and adapt to their situation. And again, in a tradition of Jaws, the filmmakers come up with a lot of small but clever ways to evoke the presence and threat of these monsters, like a pseudo first-person perspective when a worm is approaching, or the many wonderful practical effects. Bulging sand dunes, disappearing little obstacles that get sucked into the ground, similar to the floating barrels in Jaws, shaking cars and buildings, and of course the creature effects themselves. It all amounts to you really believing that there is a monster digging through the ground. I think it's just a wonderful film, and while it's not deep at all, they still didn't forget the importance of likable and memorable characters, and there's even a tiny little arc for Kevin Bacon's Valentine. And while it's really small, I think stuff like that definitely make a difference in the overall picture. When it was released, Tremors made some money at the box office, but it wasn't a huge success. But when it hit the home video market, it turned out to be a smash hit, and the franchise has developed this cult following. There have been 5 direct-to-video sequels, a TV series and a pilot for a second TV series, which wasn't picked up. I have to admit that I never watched any of the follow-ups. I can totally see that they might be a lot of fun for a loose, probably beer-heavy movie evening, and the wonderful Michael Gross, who plays the weapon Nut Bird, has become the face of the franchise. But it's likely not for me personally, because I'm not really into those trashier direct-to-DVD monster movies that rely a lot on CGI. Now, one last silly trivia before I go. Tremors has one of the craziest German titles. Here it is known as Im Land der Raketenwürmer, in the land of rocket worms. Yeah, so in German I'd say: Im Land der Raketenwürmer ist ein fantastischer Monster-Action-Horror-Streifen. Schnell, spaßig, super effizient erzählt und einfach ein wundervoller Zeitvertreib. I give Tremors 8 out of 10. It's more like 8.2, but I don't do that. Alright, that's it like always. Comment below and let me know what you think about Tremors. And also let me know, are you a fan of the whole franchise? You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram and Letterboxd, and also on Patreon, simply at the Jimmy Cage. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all I have to tell.